Hello and a really big warm welcome to this presentation from the Urban Penguin. My name is Andrew Mallett, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at how we can use static methods and what the static modifier actually does when we're looking at C#. We're going to be able to see that we can use this cross-platform programming language to be able to determine more information about our operating system so we can carry out different tasks based on whether we're running on a Linux system that we'll be demonstrating on, or whether we're running on a Windows, Mac or FreeBSD system. So come on, let's get through and find our IDE and make sure we can understand why a static method is so important. So why don't you join me on my Ubuntu 24.04 system as we go through and take a look at static modifiers in the C# programming language. So welcome, and a really big warm welcome through to my Ubuntu 24.04 system. And you can see that I'm using the Rider IDE from JetBrains. And we're going to be able to see how well this can work with C#, no matter the operating system that you're using, Windows, Mac or Linux. And we're going to be able to see the really good IntelliSense help that we get from it. So come on. Let's start looking at our program. I've created a very basic console application. We've got our normal hello world, but of course we don't want to stop there. We want to take this a little bit further. Having a programming language that we can use on any operating system means, especially as a system administrator, we're going to often need to detect the operating system to make sure that we can carry out different tasks, different administration tasks, whether we're using Windows or whether we're using Linux or Mac. So let's start looking at how that can be accomplished using C#. But in doing so, we can also investigate a little bit more about our class methods and our instance methods and the use of the word static. When we collapse our main method, we can see that it's declared with the modifier static. And we want to take a look at what that means. And the best way to do that is create another method. We'll again use the modifier static. The static modifier means that we don't need to create an instance of its class to be able to use it. So it becomes a class method rather than an instance method. Rather than using void, we're going to say that this method, the method that we're creating, is going to return a string. I'm going to call it getOperatingSystem. And we don't need to pass anything through to it, so I'm not adding anything into its parameters block. We can then create our block of code. And it gives me some intelligent settings here, but I don't want just the version string. I want to know whether or not the operating system is Windows or Linux. So we're going to go through and do a little bit more work. I'm going to have to include another library. So I'm moving to the top of the file now, and I'm going to use the using statement. The using statement is similar to the import statement that you might have used within Python. But we want to go through to system.runtime. And this is a bit of a weird one here, interrupt services. But you can see that I get the tab completion, so I get the idea of what's available to me. Now currently it's grayed out as it's not being used. But of course it will then become highlighted as we start using it. And we're about to use it now as we move back to our getOperatingSystem method. We're going to build in a little bit of an if statement so we can detect the operating system that we're using. And I say this could then be really important whether or not we're writing through to, say, the host file in Windows or the host file in Linux. We're going to have to detect our OS. Also, we're looking at installing software. We'd have to make sure that we know, well, what type of installer should you be using. Anyway, to create our if statement, we know this is going to be very easy. But also, just take a look. It's seen the name that I've given to the method. And it's gone through and put all of the information that I need. So this is really good. Maybe I put one too many parentheses in. So let me just remove that extra parentheses. Now let's see what happens when I return and put the block in place. my block of code, and look, it's returning the string Windows. We said that we're returning a string, so the IntelliSense knew then to put a return statement in, and it could guess what we want to return. Well, we can start then building this up. We can have an else if, and I can tab complete on this. So it's now choosing Linux. Let's go through and put in our block of code. And we can see we can tab on this, move down outside of our block to create another else if statement. And we can see now that it's detected OS X as the next one in the list. I'm not doing anything other than clicking the tab key, and we can see how really good the IntelliSense is within the Rider IDE. Again, that's available on any platform, whether you're using Windows, Mac, or as in this case, we're using Linux. And add my else if statement in again. Now we can see this one, perhaps it's failing a little bit. There is a fourth choice I could put in, and it's put Linux again. But let's then go through, move back to OS platform dot, and we can see the supported platforms for the underlying .NET framework include Linux, Windows, OS X, and FreeBSD. We can go back and look at our return statement. This time it has picked up FreeBSD. And we can put a final else statement in. And when we look at this, it's returning unknown. So this looks really good. Really useful help that we're getting from the IntelliSense. So this is now my static method created. Remember, we're saying with a static method, we don't have to create an instance of our class to be able to use it. Much in the same way as when we're looking at our main method, we don't have to create an instance of the program class to be able to use it. So let's move back now into my main method, and we can get rid of our console.writeLine. We don't really need our hello world. And let's start putting the code that we need to execute. And again, we're going to be able to see that there's going to be a huge amount of work that IntelliSense can do for us. So if I put my if statement in, now again, because I've imported the interop services, it thinks perhaps I want to use that. But if I use then get operating system and then is equal to, so when we're looking at our comparison, we're going to use the double equals. And then say, okay, well, look, Windows. So I can tab to complete. And then we can go through and do our console.writeLine. And again, when you think of this, I don't have to create an instance of my system class to be able to use console.writeLine. So many of the methods that you're using in any case will be coming from static methods. As we continue through, we can go through then and put the other elements that we need. So we can see now that it's guessing that I'm going to want to put in Linux, so I can tab complete on that. And we can run our block of code and look at putting in our you are using Linux. And of course, once we've tabbed on this, we can put our other statements in. Let me just quickly add them. So you can see this is running through very quickly. There's only one IntelliSense issue that it guessed at Unix rather than FreeBSD, but I've now corrected that. And we've now calling our static method get operating system to print the correct OS that we are running. We can see now that I've got the two static methods. I can execute my code. We can see then once it's executed, I can open up my window and we can see, yeah, it detected that I'm using Linux. So it seems to be working at least for that one operating system that we are testing. But remember, we were also looking at the use of the word static. So if I remove the word static from my get operating system, we can see that it's invalidated all of the get operating system calls. I can still use it, but I'm going to have to create an instance of my class now. So I can go through and say have var os equals new program, so an instance of my program class where the method is located. And of course, then I'm going to have to go through and use os.getOperatingSystem in all of the calls, with OS being the name of the variable that I've assigned to the instance of my program class. So for each of the get operating systems, I just need to append the prefix os.getOperatingSystem, and then it's going to be working correctly. But of course, I've got to go through the overhead of having to create an instance of the program class each time I need to access it. So we have instance methods, and this is now an instant method that I have to use, or we have our class methods. To use class methods, we have to make use of the static keyword.
All that is left to say is thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, then you are probably sadder than I first thought. For more of this drivel, please subscribe, like and comment to @the Urban Penguin.